On April 10, 1912, the RMS Titanic set sail from Southampton, England, bound for New York. At 269 meters long, packed with heated pools, squash courts, and ornate staircases, it was the largest and most luxurious ship ever constructed. White Star Line spent the modern equivalent of $400 million to build it. They were moving renowned industrialists and hopeful immigrants across the Atlantic, and with that much capital on the line, they needed absolute certainty the ship would safely complete its voyage. They found that certainty in the ship's architecture. Looking at this animated diagram of the Titanic's lower deck, you can see two main safety features: a reinforced double-bottom hull and a series of 16 separate watertight compartments. The engineering logic was incredibly robust. As highlighted on the diagram, the ship could sustain massive damage, even flooding 4 of these front compartments completely, and still stay perfectly buoyant. Because the math worked flawlessly on paper, executives publicly declared the ship unsinkable. But that supreme confidence created a blind spot, allowing a series of human errors to systematically dismantle those defenses over the next 4 days. The Atlantic Ocean in April 1912 was unusually crowded with ice. Between April 12th and 14th, the Titanic's radio room received multiple warnings from nearby vessels about huge icebergs drifting directly across their route. The man receiving these warnings was 62-year-old Senior Captain Edward John Smith. Under normal circumstances, he might have adjusted his approach, but Smith was carrying an immense weight of corporate expectations. White Star Line executives were determined to prove their massive investment was the fastest ship in the world. They pressured Smith to complete the crossing in a record-breaking 6 days, forcing the crew to maintain a staggering speed of 21.5 knots, which is about 40 kilometers per hour. That need for speed overrode basic safety. On the afternoon of April 14th, Captain Smith handed a severe ice warning to Joseph Bruce, the managing director of White Star Line. To prevent the crew from slowing the ship down, Bruce quietly stuffed the paper into his pocket. The company's prioritization of luxury over safety even dictated the ship's physical layout. They viewed lifeboats as unnecessary visual clutter on an unsinkable deck, installing only enough to hold about half the passengers. They even canceled the mandatory safety drill scheduled for that very morning. By nightfall, the Titanic was racing through an ice field at 40 kilometers per hour, totally devoid of an active contingency plan. At 11:39 p.m., the conditions were incredibly hostile. The moon had set, cutting visibility to near zero, and the sub-zero wind chill at the top of the ship's crow's nest caused the lookout's eyes to tear up, making it nearly impossible to spot dark objects in the water. A lookout named Frederick Fleet finally spotted a massive iceberg right in front of them and rang the warning bell. In a panic, the steersman misunderstood the deck officer's command and briefly steered the ship right, bringing the side of the hull directly into the path of the ice. This diagram shows exactly how the mechanical defenses failed. The iceberg bypassed the double-bottom hull, grazing the starboard side and buckling the metal plating. Because damage stretched along the side, the ocean poured into 6 watertight compartments at once, 2 more than it could survive. When the ship's architect, Thomas Andrews, inspected the damage below decks, the reality was immediate. Once the water spilled over the top of that 6th bulkhead, sinking was a mathematical certainty. Even as the lower compartments flooded, the passengers above felt no urgency. The public messaging about the ship's invulnerability had been so effective that people largely ignored the evacuation orders during that crucial first hour. Because passengers refused to believe the ship was actually going down, early evacuation efforts were disastrously inefficient. The first lifeboat lowered had a capacity of 65 people, but as you can see here, it left the ship carrying only 28. Yet, a rescue was physically possible. Just 37 kilometers away, another vessel, the SS Californian, was sitting completely still in the water, close enough that passengers on the Titanic's deck could literally see it on the horizon. But the Californian was dead to the world. Its radio operator had shut down his equipment for the night. When crew members saw the Titanic firing distress rockets, their captain dismissed them, insisting it was merely the wealthy passengers throwing a late-night party. The only vessel that did respond was the RMS Carpathia. Its radio operator caught the SOS, and the captain immediately turned the ship toward the Titanic. but at 107 kilometers out, it would take them over 3 hours to arrive. The tragedy was amplified by how close salvation really was. The SS Californian was right there, but the prevailing assumption that a modern luxury liner couldn't sink blinded both its passengers and its potential rescuers. By 2:20 a.m., the massive weight of the water in the bow lifted the rear propellers entirely into the air. The strain was too much for the keel. The ship snapped in half and plunged into the abyss, leaving 1,500 people stranded in the ocean. Most of those who died that night did not drown. They were submerged in -2 degrees Celsius water, a temperature that induces fatal hypothermia in a matter of minutes. This tragedy led to a series of permanent changes in maritime law. Governments established the International Ice Patrol to monitor iceberg traffic, creating a shared system of early warning for all vessels. Nations also signed the SOLAS Treaty, making it illegal for ships to turn off their radios at night and permanently ending the debate on lifeboats, mandating that every single person aboard must have a seat. As for the Titanic itself, it lay undisturbed at a depth of 3.8 kilometers until it was discovered in 1985. Today, specialized deep-sea bacteria are aggressively eating away at its metal framework. Oceanographers estimate the wreckage will completely disintegrate by 2030. The Titanic was built to withstand a specific set of risks, but its defenses were systematically bypassed by the cumulative weight of human error. Its sinking remains our most potent lesson in the limits of technology when faced with a lack of caution.